Hey y'all, so if you're a new nonprofit organization and you need help finding grants, I want you to listen to this video. I have some tips for you. Let's get started. Hey everybody, this is Tiffany with Boss in the Budget. I help new and small nonprofits get up and running. If you need help with your nonprofit, subscribe to my channel because I drop a video every single week. So today I wanted to talk about my favorite topic of all, grants. I love grants so much that I even have a Facebook group dedicated to helping people figure out how to write grants. So check out that link in the box below. But I wanted to make a video specifically for new nonprofit organizations who are looking for grant funding. That's like the number one question from new organizations. Okay, I'm new, I got my paperwork. Where do I find grants? So I want to talk to you and let me know if this is you. You can write it in the comment box below. Is this you if you believe there's that one grant out there that as soon as you get it, you'll be set and that's all your organization needs? Are you a person who you heard someone tell you there are a bunch of grants out there? You need to get your money, honey. Like if someone told you there's all this money out there and you're on a quest to find all this money this person told you about, I want you to comment below. Or if you just believe like grants is the answer for nonprofits, but you just need help kind of tapping into that source, I want you to comment below because I am going to bust all of those myths, okay? Because they're myths. I want you to be real with yourself, and I'm going to be real with you. Grants are one part of a fundraising strategy for nonprofits, but by no means should it be, I don't even believe it should be your primary strategy, but there are definitely nonprofits who can survive with mostly grant funding. But I really strongly suggest that you think through a comprehensive strategy that has income from multiple sources. So in this video, I am going to, at the end of it, I'm going to share, if you're new, where to find grants and how to do that. But I really want to talk to you about how you should be approaching your nonprofit and help kind of to re-educate you that grants is one part of the strategy, but it just can't be all of your fundraising strategy. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the assumptions as we go through the re-education. So I'm going to call this the re-education or the miseducation of the new nonprofit sector. So a lot of people make assumptions when they start their organizations. They assume that when they get their 501c3 status, it's like, I'm here, give money to me now. And it just doesn't happen that way. And a lot of people think that just because you have a nonprofit and you feel like you have a really powerful or important mission, that people should just give to you. Like they should naturally know that you're doing good work and just give. And unfortunately, it doesn't come that easy, but it can come with a clear strategy and with a strong group of people behind you pushing forward whatever strategy that you come up with. So before we kind of talk through where to find grants when you're looking in the beginning, I want to make sure you understand what grant funding is and kind of what the perspective is of grant funders. So there are foundations, there are government agencies, there are private corporations that provide financial grants to organizations that are doing good work, typically 501c3 nonprofits. But in most circumstances, there is a competitive process that you have to go through. Sometimes it's called a request for proposals. You may have heard RFP. That's what that means. And you have to basically compete against other nonprofits to basically determine who has the most compelling mission or who's going to help, push forward the agenda of the funder, who's going to do the best job, who's going to create the most impact. It really depends on the funder. It's a lot of people don't realize that grants are just not made just to help support your organization. They're made to fulfill a mission or a need of the people giving the money. So they're not just doing it to be benevolent, even though it's a good thing that they're giving away money, but they often have an agenda behind it. And the agenda could simply be, we just want to focus on this type of service or this type of program. The agenda could be, we want to raise our visibility. So like if you're talking to a corporation or something like that, They may want to market to their customers and they want to be seen that they're doing good things in the community. So you have to tap into their why and figure out why they want to give. And that kind of gives you a leg up when you are approaching funders and seeking money. A lot of times, funders will not give you substantial amounts of money if you're very, very new, right? So I just want you to understand that if you were a funder and you had a bunch of money and people kept coming to you asking you for money, at some point you'd be like, wait a minute, I want a return on my money, or at least I want to see some kind of good happen with my money. So if people are coming to you and they don't have solid plans, or they don't have a clear history of doing this work or doing the work well, or if you've never heard of them and you have no prior relationship with them, then they're less likely to give you money. So you have to look at it from their perspective. A lot of people assume that just because they give money, that they have to give money to you. But they have all kind of criteria and all kinds of things that they use to determine to whether or not they're going to give anyone money. And unfortunately, sometimes it's just who they know and who they're comfortable with, even if they do crappy work. So like there's so many what ifs, there's so many contextual factors, all the things that go into it, that a lot of times new nonprofits dive head in thinking grants is it without understanding the complicated landscape they're putting themselves into, and also not understanding that grants are so different depending on what funder you're working with. A government grant looks completely different than a foundation grant, which looks different from a corporate grant. And so when you're in the beginning and you're still trying to iron out your mission and you're still trying to, get your wording right and figure out what your why is and make your ask compelling and you're still working to get there, it's really hard to attract grant funding. So I really recommend that you take a step back and think of different ways you can make money. And honestly, you should have done this before you incorporated as a nonprofit, before you got 501c3 status. You should have sat down and had a plan and say, how are we going to make money? Right? So if our primary purpose isn't profit, and we can't necessarily just generate money for the sake of generating money, what are the mission-centered things that we can do to help us generate money? And before you put any paperwork in or sign anything, you should have done that first. The reality is most people don't do that, and that's okay. Do it now, right? And think beyond grants. Have grants be part of your strategy, but not the only strategy. And it's my advice, not the primary strategy. Though I love talking about grants, there are a lot of strings attached with grants. There's, can be a lot of mess associated with grants. So it's something that you have to weigh whether or not, what split of your income you want to rely on a restricted pot of money. And it's an individual decision. I can't make that decision for you. I will say it's great. Grants are great because it's such a large amount of money all at once. And it's not a whole lot of effort, in terms of the writing, in terms of building a relationship, but it's just a trade-off. You just got to figure out what's best for you. So I have a blog that kind of breaks down different ways nonprofits make money. There are so many options for you to make money, and it really does depend on where you are, what your assets are, what your skills are, depending on what kind of fundraising strategies you should use. I would just recommend you look at that blog and really think about what makes sense for what our skill sets are, how many supporters we have, what's our past history, and what kind of money we need to really provide our services on a consistent basis. Okay, so I hope you listened to my advice so far. Please don't feel like I'm chastising you. I have a no judgment YouTube channel, but I see this all over. I see new nonprofits making the same mistakes. So I try to educate people so they don't spend too much time going down the wrong direction and they can kind of redirect. But I do want to help you think through ways you can find grant funding. You can actually receive grants in the beginning. And you can start the strategy early. You can start planting the seeds early, which will pay off later. So the first thing I recommend anyone do is just take an inventory of all the businesses, organizations, corporations, whatever you want to call it, in your community who have a stake in the work that you're doing. Maybe they have an interest in your cause, or the people that you're serving, they're interested in those people, or maybe you have common interests like a common geography or anything like that. It could literally be they reside in your community, right? I always recommend people just literally, you can just drive down the street and write down the names of every retail business that you pass. And 9 times out of 10, all of those businesses will have a grant fund. All right. I always recommend people start small, start with Walmart. Every Walmart manager has a pot of money that they can give to community nonprofits. I recommend you start talking to the manager, build a relationship and a rapport with them. And I've seen people get $500. I've seen people get $2,500. And you can go from store to store to store to get that amount of money. So that's one way you can do that. But I recommend you just take stock of who's in your community, because a lot of businesses have some kind of corporate responsibility arm or community outreach arm, and they do a lot of work reaching out to local nonprofits. Check out your banks, check out your utility companies. I tell people all the time, people don't realize that they have a lot of money because people need them, right? They're never going to go out of business. So check those places out first. And I actually have a grants worksheet that guides you through some questions to help you brainstorm. So if you ride down the street and you're still stuck and you're like, Tiffany, I don't know what to do or where to look, my grant worksheet can help you figure that out. And you'll come out of that with at least, at a bare minimum, 25 potential grant resources. And one of my followers found 102. So the possibilities are endless. So the second thing I recommend when you're looking for grants in the beginning is to tap into your local government agencies. So most local government agencies have a pot of money from the federal government that is designated to implement federal programs. So it's all across the board. It could be welfare to work programs, youth employment programs, community revitalization, it could be beautification. In any space, in any sector, there are potentially federal sources of income that's funneled through the state government agency or the local government agency that they have to use to implement a program. And a lot of times they contract that work out, and it doesn't even have to be nonprofits. They contract some of that work out to for-profits as well. So what you could do is kind of build relationships with your local government agencies and secure local government contracts. You can provide services, and sometimes they're designated as grants and sometimes they're designated as just contractual work. And that's a huge source of income for you, and I think you should not overlook that. I recommend that you just write down all the local government agencies that are either serving the people that you're interested in serving or provide some kind of similar service as you would provide to your community, or they have potential for providing services that you maybe could provide, and just start calling them. Start figuring out who the program officers are, who the contracting officers are. Just call the offices and ask questions. And once you get in, the thing about government is once you get in, more and more opportunities will present themselves, because if people know you're doing some type of work or they're aware of your organization, they'll recommend you, or your name will just come up and more opportunities will come. So I recommend that you really look into your local government agencies and figure out what programs they're implementing, especially those that are kind of using federal sources of income. The other thing about local government, and the third thing I'll say, is tap into your local lawmakers. A lot of times your local lawmakers have small pots of money that they can give to community nonprofits. Here in my county, we have the county council. They get like $50,000 a year to spend. And it may not seem like a lot, but if a lot of people don't know about it, hey, that's a source of money. And it just gives you kind of a boost when you get that early win. Even if it's a small amount, it could still be huge for your organization. So I always recommend, if you're going to go for grants, always start local and always start by building genuine relationships. And it's easier to do that with local businesses, local agencies, all of that. It's easier to do that than automatically going for huge federal grants or huge national grants. Start small. Start with the people you can actually interact with and engage with, and that will give you so many more opportunities. That will be way more fruitful than just kind of going for the big fish first. So I feel like I talked all over the place, but I really hope I helped you kind of recenter and refocus and understand that One, grants is one part of your fundraising strategy, but you should come up with other ways to support your organization. And two, you can get grants in the beginning, but I really recommend that you start small, you start looking in your local community, and then go from there. So if you need additional help or any other resources, don't forget to visit me at my website at www.bossonthebudget.com, and I'll see you in the next video.